For Chinese gamers, Black Myth Wukong, an action role-playing game, has proven that it deserves all the hype and expectations. It not only created sales records for domestically made console games, but also claimed multiple international awards at the end of the year. Hello, I'm Ningjing. In this edition of Footprints, let's take a closer look at the legendary monkey Wukong, who has made the year 2024 Year of the Monkey for numerous gamers. We'll also unveil the pilgrimage of the Black Myth Wukong creators and how they helped Wukong the monkey fight his way to the altar of one of the best acclaimed game awards. On December the 12th, the Games Awards, regarded as the equivalent of the Oscars of games, announced its winners of the year. Black Myth Wukong, a single-player game developed by Chinese company Game Science, pocketed 2 awards, Best Action Game and Player's Voice Awards at the TGA ceremony in Los Angeles. The latter award is the only accolade that's entirely based on fan votes. A month ahead of this, Black Myth Wukong also took away the Ultimate Game of the Year for 2024 award at the 42nd Golden Joystick Awards event, one of the longest-running video game awards. While expressing his feelings of sorrow that Black Myth Wukong missed the most coveted TGA Game of the Year award, the game's producer Feng Ji, also co-founder of Game Science, applauded the game's performance as record-breaking on Weibo, the Chinese equivalent of X.
Black Myth Wukong, making it to the finals for 4 TGA nominations, including Game of the Year, Best Game Direction, Best Action Game, and Best Art Direction, is a first for Chinese games. We won Best Action Game and Player's Voice. The latter award really means a lot.
Black Myth Wukong is inspired by the 16th century Chinese classic novel Journey to the West. The fantasy novel is an account of the epic journey to India by a monk, his 3 disciples and a horse in search of sacred Buddhist texts. Wukong, the immortal monkey, is one of the 3 disciples. He's armed with super combat skills and supernatural shape-transforming powers. He fights monsters and baddies to smooth the path of the band throughout the journey. Is the embodiment of sound judgment, bravery and loyalty, together with an abundance of tricks and a rebellious spirit. As a hero figure in the book, the monkey is loved by generation after generation of Chinese kids. The story of Black Myth Wukong is set after Wukong completes the journey to the west and starts to explore a new chapter in his life. He returns to Mount Huaguoshan, but somehow becomes the target of a relentless pursuit led by a 3-eyed immortal and a heavenly army. In the game, players adopt the role of the Destined One, venturing on a treacherous and wondrous journey to uncover the obscured truth about the legendary monkey. Following its release in August, the game repeatedly broke sales records for domestically produced titles. On the Steam platform, 96% of players left positive reviews on this game.
An absolute cinematic experience from the storytelling, combat, NPCs and bosses and environment. This game hits every single high note flawlessly. Stories beautifully told.
Absolutely amazing graphics with interesting folklore. There are places in the game that I would stop for a few moments just to enjoy the scenery. The combat is fun, and each boss has their own
This
mechanics.
game is a prime example of when developers love their own work and put their heart and soul into it, having a ton of fun in this very well-crafted game.
Those were some recent reviews given by players Chronix, Albiono and La Dante on Steam community. Game producer Feng Ji and his team absolutely love the product of their own making. According to the producer, Wukong and Journey to the West are things that have been chiseled on the memories of his generation.
We grew up watching TV dramas based on Journey to the West, as well as many other adaptations of the book. It became part of our cultural DNA. So, when the right moment comes, it naturally finds its way into our work.
Black Myth Wukong is a game reimagined on a Chinese novel and Chinese mythology. Much of the cultural elements are unique to China. How does the team manage to make the game's storytelling so successfully cross cultures? In producer Feng Ji's eyes, besides its stunning visuals and engaging gameplay, the game's popularity also lies in part with the fact that the game contains some common values that all cultures cherish.
I think some values are universal. Things like wanting to see evil punished, good rewarded, fairness in the world, love being important, and sacrifices appreciated. These are values shared by all humanity.
In addition, Feng Ji says what's great about games is it doesn't demand certain knowledge to understand what's going on in the game.
Let's say, even if you don't know Journey to the West or the relationships between its characters, if you're dropped into this ultra-realistic forest with lifelike monsters and get rewarded for making the right moves, you'll still be hooked. Later, you might reflect on the game's message or its cultural elements. Players don't need to agree with everything. If the game sparks curiosity about something beyond their own culture, that's enough.
And apparently, the production team had decided that their game should not be limited to action-packed fights or battles. In Game Science Studio in Hangzhou, Feng Ji was examining the design of a fish image, which is also taken from Chinese mythology. In the Black Myth Wukong game, ancient Chinese architecture, temples and sculptures all come alive. They have surprisingly become eye-catching features. This again was the result of years of effort from the team. To give Black Myth more realistic game settings, the development team spent more than 3 years traveling to over 100 places across the country to scan images of ancient buildings, sculptures, and different landforms and use them as blueprint for game setting designs. This approach has given the game a strong cultural atmosphere, linking the virtual world to the real world. According to the producer, his team tried hard to make these images deftly blend into the plots.
There is no formula where simply combining all the right elements will make your game exceptional. You might craft stunning visuals, aligned with traditional aesthetics, and compose beautiful music. But that alone doesn't guarantee a masterpiece. True artistry lies in finding the right balance, a process that emerges only through trial and error. It takes experimentation and persistence to discover that perfect point of harmony.
The relic sites and places of historical interest featured as the game settings have amazed many players. They add a mysterious and exotic flavor to the gameplay. And this quickly translates into a tourist craze, making those relic sites internet sensations overnight. Some previously less well-known relic sites are now swarming with visitors, so much so that they have had to cap visitor numbers. To the producer, scanning the images, although a meticulous process, was not the difficult part. However, making them perfectly blend into the game at the right pace and compatible with the storyline was. He thinks the success is due to the persistent engagement of his team, which has been working on the Wukong-themed games for 15 years. "15 years seems a long time. What tortuous road did the creators of Wukong travel before they finally helped make 2024 the year of the monkey for gamers? Let's take a short break here. We'll be back with more on the behind-the-scenes stories of Wukong creators when we are back together. Although Black Myth Wukong was officially released in 2024, Fengji and his team had dived into the Wukong story many years earlier. It's a long story, so let's start with the game's producer Fengji himself. Fengji joined the game industry quite by chance, but his entanglement with gaming can be traced way back. Fengji's childhood coincided with the boom in arcade games in the 1980s. He loved playing games as a kid. His parents' attitude towards his passion for games was that, as long as his academic grades didn't suffer, they would not interfere. His grades did not go down, and he was admitted to the Hangzhou University of Science and Technology at the age of 18. He majored in biomedical engineering, a subject he said he picked at random.
乱选的。听到这种生物医学工程的时候，你第一反应是，会做出一些。
When I first heard about biomedical engineering, I imagined creating innovative devices, such as a spaceship freezer capsule capable of sustaining life for decades during interstellar travel.
Well, after he actually took up this major, Fengji gradually realized that perhaps he needed to rethink his dreams.
比如说我在大二大三的时候，那我会意识到可能我不算一个特别适合在。
By my second or third year of college, I realized that biomedical engineering wasn't the right path for me. I was good at designing animation software and creating lifelike animations using tools like Flash.
As graduation drew near, Fengji, like many other young people of the time, had to choose between locating a job or taking the postgraduate entrance exams and furthering their studies. He chose the latter.
但实际上我在那个时候是比较迷茫。
Back then, I felt lost. I thought I should follow the tide and prepare for postgraduate exams, but I didn't feel drawn to any particular major. Playing games gave me a temporary escape and a refuge from those worries.
For lack of true interest, Fengji indulged himself in the world of online games at internet cafes for months when he should have prepared for the exams.
我那个时候脑子里只有游戏。
I was completely hooked on games for 3 or 4 months. I told my parents I was studying for exams, but really, they didn't know I was living in a blur between day and night. It was like I'd given up on myself.
Now, looking back at the few months when he was mentally shuffling between the virtual world of games and the real world where he was to sit the undergraduate entrance exams, Fengji says it was lucky that during that disastrous time he accumulated a lot of thoughts on games and gaming.
可能是我在
Deep down, I knew I couldn't keep going like that. Sooner or later, I'd have to face my parents, admit I wasn't preparing for exams, and ask for their help after spending all my money. That awareness forced me to reflect. If I was going to indulge in games, I might as well try to learn something from them, take notes, or understand them from an engineering perspective.
Those notes helped Fengji to understand the underlying logic of games. And as he had quote-unquote wisely predicted, his gaming indulgence came to an end when his purse went empty.
终于有天弹尽粮绝了嘛。弹尽粮绝之后呢
Eventually, I ran out of money. 2 months later, I turned to my university roommates for help. They lent me some money. One of them in Shenzhen offered to take me in for a while.
In Shenzhen, Fengji decided to try his luck with the gaming industry. Surprisingly, the bioscience major undergraduate got job offers within 1 week from 2 game development companies. So, in 2005, Fengji joined the gaming industry as a game designer. 2 years into the job, Fengji published a long, angry article on the internet titled "Who Killed Our Games?" In the article, he passionately expressed his disappointment at the problems within the gaming industry at the time and pointed out the vice of too much focus on profit gains.
我想象中游戏策划应该是想这个玩法怎么打动我，这个故事怎么打动我。
To me, game design should be about making the gameplay fun, the story compelling, and the characters feel real. But in reality, a lot of discussions end up being about how to make the game more profitable. Of course, back then, I was still a newbie in the industry.
Now, as co-founder and CEO of Game Science, the company behind Black Myth Wukong, what does he think of what he said in this early article?
我其实挺庆幸那个时候我把当时的想法记录下来了。
I'm glad I recorded my thoughts at the time. They were sincere. There's a saying, armed with a sharp weapon, one may harbor dangerous thoughts. Games can tread dangerous paths, so we, as developers, must constantly remind ourselves of this responsibility. Reading those old reflections still resonates with me today.
Leaving his first gaming company, Fengji joined Tencent, one of the biggest game companies in the country. He became the lead game designer of a Journey to the West-inspired project called Dou Zhanshen, or God of War, which marked the beginning of Fengji's work on Wukong-themed games. Although that game performed well in the first few rounds of test runs, it ultimately embarked on the Ke-Jin path, or encouraging users to spend money due to high game development costs. The practice of user spending money is common in online games, where players spend serious money purchasing virtual gear or services through actual payments in the game to gain some advantages or enhance the gaming experience. In the end, God of War gradually lost its appeal to users despite its rich storyline and a smooth combat system.
那个产品虽然最后也许结果并不是非常成功。
That game wasn't a big success, but some parts of it were praised by players. Their feedback affirmed we were on the right track and inspired us to refine it further after leaving our previous jobs.
To give the dying game a boost, Fengji and his team even made a series of self-mocking short films. One of the scenes in the short films features Fengji as a game designer being chased all over the place by angry gamers who are super disappointed by his poor game design. In the self-mockery, Fengji is forced to quit Tencent and hides in an abandoned factory where he's still cornered by players and beaten up humiliatingly. Despite the humor, the self-mocking films failed to save the fortunes of that game. In 2014, Fengji left Tencent with 6 other colleagues who were not willing to give up on Wukong-themed games. They set up a game company, Game Science, and continued with their unfinished journey with the monkey.
这个我们出来的这个游戏公司起名叫游戏科学的时候，为什么它有科学2个字？
We included science in our company name because game development has its own logic and is fundamentally rooted in mathematics, something that can be mastered. We also have an edge in understanding local users because they're similar to us.
Of course, their persistence with console games was also based on a very clear-headed analysis of the market.
其实我们能感觉到整个中国是很蓬勃的，再去接近国际的。
We realized that China's rapid development has enabled us to catch up with international peers, thanks in large part to advancements in manufacturing. For instance, computer memory storage, once extremely limited, has become vastly more affordable due to manufacturing breakthroughs, making massive storage devices accessible. Barriers that once held back the gaming industry have now disappeared. When technology reaches a certain level of advancement, generational gaps in its adoption can disappear almost instantly. The rise of various industries has brought significant changes, the most notable being an expansion of the talent pool. A larger talent pool is crucial because it determines the industry's scale, the number of skilled engineers, and the potential user base.
The time they set up Game Science, mobile games were just booming. Game Science launched a couple of mobile games which brought in good money. After managing to gather sufficient funding, Fengji took a bold move. He partially gave up mobile games in 2018 and turned to developing large-scale single-player games. Black Myth Wukong came back on the agenda.
当时我们也有另外一个判断，就是
We reached a different conclusion. We believed the single-player game market in China was just beginning to grow. While many had played foreign single-player games, there were very few high-quality, locally made ones with domestic themes.
Compared with other online games, console games generally have higher requirements on financing, content richness, and technology, and of course, more risks in terms of financial returns. But Feng Ji and his team persisted with the project.
很多人把中国的游戏觉得暂时不如海
Some
外。
people believe Chinese games fall short compared to overseas ones, whether in terms of technology or the industry's relatively short history. They argue that the time needed for such depth and refinement cannot be condensed. Some even doubt that domestic users can appreciate those elements in games. I didn't agree with that. A game is just a type of creation. It's nothing more than a process of experimentation and deduction.
On August 20th, 2024, Black Myth Wukong was officially launched globally, with over 1 million online players on its first day. According to stats from VG Insights, it has so far sold over 20 million copies on the game platform Steam, generating more than $1 billion in revenue. After so many years of ups and downs in the game industry, how does Feng Ji look at his younger self now? Does he still hold the same belief he held years ago when he was just a rookie game developer?
我觉得中间其实不敢说我从来没有摇摆过。
I can't say there weren't any moments of self-doubt, but looking back at my earlier reflections reminds me of what I wanted back then. It makes me reflect. Am I still someone my younger self would be proud of?
In the game Black Myth Wukong, the destined one went on a journey in search of his true self and what he believes to be right. To a certain extent, Feng Ji and his generation of Chinese game developers are somewhat like Wukong. They had been through failures, felt lost, but recollected themselves and fought on until they made games they regard as good. That brings us to the end of this edition of Footprints. If you are interested in hearing more stories of incredible individuals in China, just key in Footprints and you'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Ning Jing. Bye for now.